I've taken on the role of prosecutor. But all of you have an important role to play in this presentation, so pay attention. Because you're all the jury in this criminal trial, and you, all of you, will decide the outcome of this case of unlawful killing. It is the case of the late George Louis von Flytrap. He has another name, better known in our culture by a much shorter name, and for brevity I will use that name a little later. I will show you a video. Now, I warn, there are graphic images of violence in this video, but it's important that you see this video because this is the entire defence case. But I will use sections of transcript, the relevant sections of transcript from this defence video to prove to you the guilt of the accused beyond reasonable doubt. This case goes back to 1962, but I remind you that there is no statute of limitations on the charge of unlawful killing. This is a call for justice, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I'll play that defence video for you.
Turn it up.
On you.
One spring and Louis the Fly, apple of his old mother's eye, was Louis. Poor dead Louis, Louis the Fly, a victim of Mortine.
Just as a gun will not kill anyone until someone pulls the trigger, so it is that Louis could not be killed until the man with a can of mortine killed him. Mortine provided the weapon. The man with a can of mortine pressed the trigger. Let's look at the relevant transcripts, the relevant sections of transcript from this video, ladies and gentlemen. Now, bearing in mind that this defence video is all about saying that Louis the Fly was a dirty, disease-carrying fly. And what does it matter if he dies? But I will prove to you the facts are otherwise. Exhibit 1, I'm Louis the Fly. How familiar are we with that saying? Here, the defence have admitted and recognised that Louis has a name. He's not just any common dirty disease-carrying fly. He is an individual, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. He is Louis the Fly. Now, spreading disease with the greatest of ease. Here we have a photo of Louis, and I can test that spreading disease with the greatest of ease because here is Louis before he entered the house of death, working on pollinating some flowers because, as we all know, flies are the main pollinators. The flies do the work, the bees get the glory. Bad and mean and mighty unclean. This is in two parts, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Bad and mean. Now, this is nothing more than character assassination on the part of the defence. They're trying to besmirch his character by alleging that he's bad and mean. But let me show you something that proves otherwise. Here is Louis leading a group of young orphan flies. He's taken them under his wing, ladies and gentlemen, to train them in the art and skills of pollinating plants. He is a loving, community-minded individual, certainly not bad and mean, as the defence alleges. There's the second part to that. Bad and mean and mighty unclean. Now, here's a picture of a fly cleaning itself. We've all seen them do this. This is not Louis, by the way. We've all seen them do this. They spend an inordinate amount of time cleaning themselves. Why? Because scientists, these very clever scientists who know these things, will tell you that flies are far cleaner than we are. They are something like 6 times cleaner than humans. And they're attracted to us because we are dirty, smelly animals. So their argument that he's bad and mean and mighty unclean, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, does not stack up. Now, I show you this photo of Louis covered in pollen from one of his pollinating trips. And I'll come to this, why this is so important, shortly. Another line from the transcript, afraid of no one. I've highlighted the word afraid, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. This is important to remember because when you look at the definition of afraid from the Oxford Dictionary, what does it tell us? Feeling fear, frightened because you think, ladies and gentlemen, think that you might be hurt or suffer. Here, Mortine admit that not only does Louis have a name, but he thinks. Ladies and gentlemen, comprehend that for a moment. He's a thinking being. And of course, afraid of no one except the man with the can of Mortine, who stands here today, ladies and gentlemen, accused of a foul crime of killing Louis the Fly. He's actually named. So arrogant is their defence case, ladies and gentlemen, that they name the perpetrator of the crime, the man with the can of Mortine. Also from the transcript, hate that word, Mortine. Again, I've highlighted the word hate, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, for a very real reason, because when you look at the definition of hate, also from the Oxford Dictionary, intense hostility and aversion, usually deriving from fear, anger, or sense of injury, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. What does that tell us? Louis the Fly has a name. He thinks. He senses things. He has sensibilities. Where does this take us, ladies and gentlemen? I'll tell you shortly. It takes us to this, the definition of a sentient being. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to accept that, as Mortine have said, that Louis is a sentient being. He is an individual. He is named. He has senses. He thinks. All the things that we do as humans. He is an aware being, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Continuing on, put that aside for a moment, continuing on with the transcript. One spray on Louis the Fly apple of his old mother's eye. Now, there is more than one victim in this crime, ladies and gentlemen. When Louis left that morning to go to work to do his pollinating duties, his mother sat there knitting, waving her son goodbye, never knowing she would never see him again. Poor dead Louis. Let's take a moment to reflect on his death. Ladies and gentlemen, poor dead Louis. But what I'm about to show you blows the defence argument totally out of the water, ladies and gentlemen. This is the crux of my whole argument. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Louis the Fly, a victim of Mortein. Yes, they provided the weapon, but the man with a can of Mortein was the one who pressed the trigger. What does this mean? Victim of Mortein. Definition of victim. Someone who has been killed or has suffered because of the actions of someone else. Ladies and gentlemen, Mortein have told us that Louis has a name. He's an individual. He is a sentient being. He is a someone, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. And in this call for justice, I urge you to find the man with a can of Mortein guilty of the unlawful killing of Louis the Fly. There can be no other verdict, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, than the man with the can of Mortein is guilty. Your Honour, you've got some work to do.
I will ask you to vote with a show of hands and will accept a majority decision on the charge of unlawful killing of George Louis von Flytrap, also known as Louis the Fly. Do you find the accused, the man with the can of Mortein, guilty or not guilty? Show of hands for guilty. And a show of hands for not guilty.
He's a dead man.